Hello, and welcome to the Libri Labra book club. I am joined by my husband, John, and book club VIP member, Tom Brennan. Today, we're going to be talking about Ireland by Frank Delaney. And before we start talking about it, I just want to say quickly that if you are ever interested in joining our chat, we do have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/Libri Labra. There are quite a few different perks. If you are a book club VIP member, you get a custom bookmark. You get to help us select some of the books that we read. There is an exclusive Facebook book club VIP chat. And there are a couple of other tiers if you're interested. So that's patreon.com/Libri Labra. Normally we just kind of get into initial thoughts first, and then we will do our spoiler-filled chat. But I will start by just letting Tom kind of talk a little bit about why he selected this book for March.
Well, at the risk of being obvious, it is the month of St. Patrick's Day, and I've had this book in my collection for a while, and given my last name, I think it's not hard to connect the dots and say, yeah, that's kind of why I chose it. So,
okay. Did you want to give some initial thoughts in regards to, just how you felt about it?
It's a book about storytelling. It's a book about a coming-of-age novel, and it's also actually a history of Ireland in terms of its most significant episodes. So there's a lot going on here in the novel. So,
how about you?
I liked it because of its story meta. Like, it's a story within a story within a story. It's just it's telling a story of multiple things at once, and you get more and more like involved in it as it progresses. Even though you're getting a lot of like bits and pieces of history of the area and what's going on here, then when and where, but it's I'm going to have to like read it again.
It's definitely a book worth rereading, I would say.
And I'm actually very, very interested in that area geographically. Ireland, Scotland, and the UK, and all the crap they've put each other through, or the UK's put everybody through in the past.
I think the book helped me, or really highlighted how little I know about history.
It's hard enough to know the history of your own country, let alone
somebody else's. Yeah.
Sorry. Continue.
But it. Crap, what was I going to say? Oh, that I know it was described as fictionalized history. And so I was hoping to talk a little bit about that. As opposed to like historical fiction. I'm not sure what the difference is there between those two things. But I did enjoy it. I thought it was pretty cool. I was very interested. I liked the frame story that was happening within all of the other stories. But I think I found myself, even John as well, almost in every story we were like, wait, did that really happen? Wait, was that what really happened?
I really do enjoy some of the humor in it too.
Oh, the humor was great.
Oh, good.
Just because it's more of a cultural differences in humor, and I love learning more about other people's what they find funny and how they find it funny.
I mean, it's to me it's kind of fascinating because I can't think of anything that we say that stands out to me, especially not off the top of my head, that I'm like, oh, that's such a cool saying. But yet, like, whether it's Australian or UK or, Ireland, Scotland, whatever, I feel like even Latinos have a lot of sayings that I think are hilarious and
don't translate well.
Right, yeah.
Right,
and it just seems so much funnier than anything we can come up with. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed it.
Good. So now we need to spoilers.
Yes, so spoilers.
Okay, I mean, this is almost a 500 plus page book.
Well, I know I'm gonna have to. You're gonna probably fill in some holes for us. So,
yeah, I think I may have.
You do me way too much credit because.
And it's gonna need a second read for me.
Yeah,
I knew for me it was definitely going to have to be something that I was listening to and reading at the same time, and I did that as much as possible. There were some areas in the beginning of the book that I just I had to be doing something else while I was listening, so I do have some holes closer to the beginning, but
I think I know what one of the questions is going to be. But
Oh,
go ahead.
But did you have a question?
no. Mm-mm.
Okay, not specifically.
Not yet. Not yet. We'll get there.
I don't know how you want to, because it's so history filled and there's so many individual stories in there. I don't know what the best way to lead the discussion is.
I actually noted down all the stories he told that were told.
Okay, awesome.
Which is considerable.
All right, let's do it.
Here they are, and they go in order, which kind of surprised me.
In order, like chronological order.
Chronological order, yeah. New Grange, Ulster.
Mm-hmm.
That's with Connor and Dana and the blacksmith. Patrick, Brendan the navigator, Finn McCool with the Mountain of Women, Annan and Senna, the Book of Kells. How the Irish discovered poetry. Brian Baru, the storyteller's own story. He talks about himself. Dermot McMurrow, his daughter Aoife marries the Norman knight Richard Fitzgilbert de Clare. The invention of the harp. Hugh O'Neill, the Battle of Yellowford. The Irish defeat Oliver Cromwell. Edmund Spencer, Handel's Dublin performance of the Messiah. The Battle of the Boyne. Let's see, what else do we have here? John Philbin, where the Irish service gets script. That's the Ballycarron Carriage. Jonathan Swift, Daniel O'Connell, the Great Irish Potato Famine, Charles Parnell, William Butler Yeats, and the Easter Rising. So that's all stories in there. So it's a good number of them.
Well, I think it's worth noting that even though it was a very long book, there was no point where I was like, I wish it would be over. Like it was just great storytelling.
Yeah, it was.
And I think the humor definitely added to that. I don't know if I picked up everything in every story because, again, some of the history was just completely lost on me, and trying to put all the pieces together was a little bit difficult. But it was for a 600-page book, almost a 600-page book. I think it was pretty awesome. And I'm trying to think. I think I was definitely more wrapped up in the frame story. Like kind of sometimes I would be listening to the historical parts thinking like, okay, but tell me what Ronan is doing. Tell me what, like, where he is. Where's the storyteller? What's happening with them? Because that's what I was really wrapped up in. I think there was a lot of family drama there.
Mm-hmm.
I just going throughout the whole book thinking that his name was Roland or Roland? Ronan. Okay. So Ronan was I just assumed he was just going to take the storyteller's place. I didn't know that there was going to be some sort of tie-in there. I mean, I should have expected it, but I just enjoyed the journey throughout everything. Like the entire story is a journey. So it was impressive.
Can you recap a little bit for me? And I don't know which story it was, but it was the one where the guy had like his white horse and his black horse and the two women.
That was let me look at my notes here. That was
It was the king.
Ulster, yeah, King Connor, with the queen, and they had the banquet, and he chose Dana, this young hot chick, to be his like chancellor, and the queen wasn't having any of that.
No, she wasn't having any of that.
So she said, "Hey, I know, you can marry him to the blacksmith." Or to the blacksmith. So. Yeah.
And then the blacksmith does come up in another story, doesn't he? I thought he did.
That was a different blacksmith.
Different blacksmith.
With the same name?
No.
Okay.
No, the stories occur like hundreds of years apart in the beginning, so
right.
It would be unlikely that they would be the same person. So.
It was his grandson. I don't know.
Actually, that's what's going on in the book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even like with a country that ran the way it did, the smithy, there's probably weren't many blacksmiths. So
and that's the point. Yeah,
right.
Because in their society, he made the point of saying that blacksmiths are really important people because they were the ones who gave the army their weapons, they horsed the shoes, they were well respected members of society at the time.
Right. So it wouldn't be too far-fetched to find out that family was still involved in both cases. And that's an assumption, though. So it's a speculation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not surprisingly, as I was reading this, I was like, I really have to watch Outlander.
Yes, you should, because there's a connection to Outlander in the novel. That's what I expect you to ask about. We'll get to that later.
Yeah. I think the author has written mostly nonfiction. Is that? Oh, well, let's talk a little bit about the differences between historical fiction and fictionalized history. How would you describe? What are the differences between the two?
Fictionalized history in my eyes, would be taking something that know existed and then just adding a story into it. Historical fiction is basically like building your story around other like something else happening or like through it. Like it's one encasing the other, not the other way around. So don't get it, do you? No. Okay, Tom.
I'm not sure that there's a distinction between historical fiction and fictional history, but they do set up a continuum in the book in the sense that if you look at there's history, which is taught by historians like his one professor, I think it was Ryle, but I'm not sure, who says, no, you can't do it like that because you're adding too much color. It's like you don't add dates and you're not doing this, so it's not proper history. And then there's the other side, which is the 3 furlongs and their musical numbers, which is history. And that's like, well, that's all color commentary. It's not real history.
Yeah.
And then there's Ronan somewhere in the middle.
I guess in my head I'm thinking that, obviously the historical parts were likely all the stories that he told. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much fibbing or fabricating was in there, but the fictional part was Ronan and the storyteller.
Well, it's also it depends on how the story is told, because St. Patrick grabbing a snake by the tail and throwing it like a helicopter, and the snake's not coming back. Like I don't know if that's complete history, but
but
he has to do with how
the
that
story.
happened.
Yeah, it moves the story along. Yeah, that's how you get people involved. And the way Ronan and the storyteller tell a story is that we don't know what the motivations of the people were, but it helps to fill in the human context of the story, and that's what gets people interested because they can relate to. And that's what Ronan says when he's defending his work. It's like people understand this emotion, and that's how I get them into the story.
I was incredibly tense from the part where Ronan left his house and he was kind of out looking for the storyteller. Every time he came across someone new and they were like, yeah, we've seen him, he's been here, and I'm like, when has he been here? And they're like, oh, he was here a couple years ago. I'm like, no, that's not what we're looking for.
Right. Oh, he's been a couple months back. Months,
because at one point he ended up at somebody's house and
it was like a day ago.
It was a day ago, and I was like, oh, they're so close, but then like weeks went by, months went by, and I was like, oh my God. Somebody
slows them down, says, oh, I saw him over here, and then it was 2 months ago. I'm like, wait, so you went the wrong direction for a while.
They could see him, like he could see the car and him and his friend
right on the other side of the river.
No, so close. So,
but obviously that was all part of like Ronan's journey, and he, got to experience what his life would be like as the storyteller. Like that was, so that was like his training, I guess. I kind of thought there would be a little bit more resolution in regards to his origins.
I thought there were.
I mean, they never really discussed it.
No, he decided it was better to leave it alone.
The storytellers, you mean?
No, I mean Ronan. Ronan finding out
his family stuff.
About his family stuff. Because he was obviously really upset about it. Well, first of all, the way he found out was ridiculous.
Yeah. A belligerent guy, drunk guy.
Well, it's kind of thing where they make mention of this throughout the book, that he's been protected all his life, and this is the first thing that pierces that armor. Is that hey? So of course he goes like berserk. So,
but that's just there's a lot of resolve there for him to be like. I don't remember what exactly he did. He was like, I think it's that he started calling them each by their names, and he was like, that should let them know that I know, but I'm not going to say anything beyond that. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know how I would feel, but I'd feel like I'd have to say something. We need to talk about this.
Well, my dad, when he found out, he just cut them off completely.
Ugh.
He's lied to me my whole life, and he was upset about it.
Now, how should I put this? It's also about how do you like we read in Beloved, how do you let the past control your future, in the sense that, does Ronan allow this to control himself in the future? Like in Ireland, for example. Oh, well, your great 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 grandfather stole a potato from my great great grandfather 700 years ago, and now we're in a blood feud.
Right.
And at what point do you let it go? And Ronan seems to have made his choice.
So. As soon as someone forgets about it.
Or they say, I'm not going to let myself be, controlled by this anymore. I'm going, like they said in Beloved, lay your sword and shield down.
I thought it was interesting that the storyteller's name was Patrick, right?
No.
What was his name?
Ronan.
No,
Ronan.
that's the kid.
Yeah.
The actual
also
storyteller.
They named him after his grandfather.
Wait, what?
You didn't hear that, apparently.
Yeah.
I thought his name was Patrick.
No, that was St. Patrick.
Okay, so
What was his son's name? Do you know?
John.
Was it John?
It's,
Okay.
it's Ronan, John, then Ronan.
Oh, how did I miss that?
I don't know.
I swore like they kept calling him after.
They do it really obliquely in the book. So
They say that they gave him a namesake of they wanted to name him after someone who was going to be a big part of his life or something.
But,
something like that. I don't know.
When did
Some
they
sort of namesake.
slide that in? Because I feel like it must not have been mentioned when he was at the
it's
house.
like at the last part of the book when they
Okay,
Yeah.
I was gonna say because I would think the little kid would have been like, "You have the same name as I do," and that would have like spurred a whole.
Oh
different...
no!
Yeah.
No, he didn't find out his name until
much later.
he didn't know his name until he found him in the nursing home.
Okay. Well, what I was gonna say was just that. I mean, it's sad that he lived this somewhat lonely life.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of going from place to place, telling stories. I know that was something that was important to him and it was meaningful to him and it kind of defined him.
Right.
But, that he wasn't able to really live his love or fully have the romance that he could have or might have. And that seemed to also be reflected in Ronan's life a little bit because he just... he was kind of a little behind in regards to relationships and things like that. So I feel like they set him up to be somewhat disconnected in that way so that he could.
But you know why?
What?
Because it was a child out of wedlock.
Well, I understand. I understand what happened.
Right, okay.
But this is a written story. So obviously I think the author was thinking about how to not leave him with ties. Like he didn't have any real ties to be tied down in any one place. So that was just the challenge, the obstacle that came up so that he couldn't have that.
I see. I think I see what you're saying.
But more so, I was just talking about how it seems to also be reflected in Ronan's life, just so that he doesn't have ties, so he can be the traveling storyteller.
The other thing I noticed is Allison. They spend like most of the book her just being pissed off all the time. They don't really give you the reason why until like almost like three quarters of the way through the book. And when I first started reading the book, he comes off with Newgrange and then he comes off with the Ulster story. And then it occurred to me that, well, considering their living relationship, because Kate apparently lives with Allison and John, he just told two stories where the guy in the story goes for a younger woman. It's like, well, of course that would piss her off.
I didn't put that together, so I guess that's one of the reasons this would be a good reread to see that. Yeah,
well,
she definitely got.
It's amazing. Like when he told the Newgrange story, the architect of Newgrange, how the angry woman had the hots for him. Then she had the daughter, and like, oh, the daughter has the hots for him too, and he eventually goes with the daughter. That was the first one, and the second one was with Ulster, of course. Connor goes for the hot young chick, and oh no, you're sticking with me, with the queen. So same, it's like, oh, that would piss her off. Okay.
Wait, did he not just take the 2 horses and ride off and never come back? Is that did I mishear that? I thought when the realization hit that his wife set up his mistress with somebody else, that he was like, oh, well, then I'm out completely.
Yeah.
Thought he just took off, but I don't know. I have to revisit that story.
Yeah, I didn't make that connection. I knew that just Allison was just very, very grouchy. And it's interesting looking back, knowing that she had so much more additional information. Mm-hmm. Like she knew that was Ronan's grandfather. Mm-hmm. And those, like, to keep those kinds of heavy family secrets, that's gotta weigh on people.
Well, wasn't also part of it that she was barren? Like she couldn't have children? So that's the reason why this kind of worked out for some people.
It was more for her being barren than being barren. Was I thought that she had a health risk bearing children because all the miscarriages that she had. So it'd be
you almost lost her on the last one.
The last one, yeah. So,
but I mean, it's interesting that the way John and Kate's relationship was explained. Like, I can't imagine that setup or what Allison was feeling. And like how to even set something. It sounded like they weren't really necessarily communicating anything to each other. It was just this implied arrangement that they set up. I don't know. How much younger was Kate?
5 or 6 years, I think. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'd have to look. It was somewhere in that range, but they were working within the society which they were placed, in the sense that he obliquely referenced. Well, he does mention the Catholic Church saying, "Hey, you can't have sex unless you're having kids." So that means no birth control. So if you're going to have sex, you have the risk of impregnating your wife and causing her to miscarry and losing her. So, what are the other options there?
Oh, that's rough.
That whole thing was rough.
Yeah.
Stupid governments and their laws, or churches. I don't know.
Well, in this case, the church and the government were pretty well aligned. But of course, Allison was very not self-righteous, but I guess she very much believed in the Catholic Church. So that's why she hated the storyteller, I think, is because he reminded her of her husband's bastardy. And of course, if that got out, that would be a whole scandal. But then again, you have the case where, oh yeah, Allison's going to have the kid and nobody will know. Of course, everybody knew.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Except the one person who needed to.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. It was just funny that I lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
There were a couple of places that I highlighted some of the things that were in there, but I thought it was funny. I think it was Riley, right?
Yeah,
Professor Riley. That was just saying it's a secret, so of course everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Like, duh.
I like the little one-liners that were put through it. You got but so many butts. You sound like you could be a goat or a ram or something. And I was like, oh my god, these things that these people say. Mm-hmm. I want more of them.
They're snarky and funny.
But I think that and in John's case, the fact that he was a bastard, even society further back was still more stringent than that. So it was like, working within that. I think he shows that that's the influence of the church and society on people, and it causes them to make certain decisions. And here we have the story.
Again, kind of highlighting my lack of knowledge in history. I had not realized that Catholics, right? Is that Catholics were being prosecuted in Ireland
Yes.
that way.
Wait, because they weren't
Persecuted.
Protestant?
Persecuted.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
what?
Prosecuted. Persecuted.
Did I say prosecuted?
Mm.
You said
Yeah.
prosecuted.
But
Well, it
I'm
was
sorry.
both, but yeah, you're not wrong.
They're throwing the book at you.
I guess that was just surprising to me, considering how heavily we try to cram that into our politics here in the U.S. now. I don't know. I didn't realize there's definitely quite a few things that I'd like to read more up on, because there's stuff that I know just from like tidbits here and there. Like the story of the leprechaun was interesting. I was like, oh, is that where that comes from? Is that like where did those drawings and those illustrations and that story? But I do want to read more about the potato famine.
Yes.
Because I guess I knew that was a thing, but it wasn't until John was like, millions of people died. It's like, what?
Millions.
So that's
Well, that's like the elders when they were talking in the first story. The one says, "Oh, Ireland's going to be, great, and we're going to be fertile and such." And then the Silken Elder says, "Yes, but you won't be able to support your children, and they'll have to leave the country." And it's like, oh well, if that isn't foreshadowing the potato famine, I don't know what it is. I mean, there were other things before that, but so. But there were active attempts, as we saw in the book, like the penal laws, to expunge Irish culture.
John's laughing.
Yeah. They couldn't speak Gaelic. They had to speak English by law. And as you saw, they couldn't hold office. They couldn't do this. They couldn't do that. So yeah, there is a history, and that's why in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, I'm sure they had like the peace walls, like that divided neighborhoods, like down the street, Protestants on one side, Catholics on the other.
Oh gosh.
Oh, when you bring up the penal laws,
yeah,
I was laughing because of the fact that he had to correct people all the time on their misuse of words, and they're all like, "That doesn't matter."
I didn't want to hear.
Yeah, whatever.
Yep,
it's all the same.
So there is history there, but how much do you allow it to control your present and your future? That's the question, I think. So
it's just unfortunate that all these stories and going back in time just kind of demonstrate the same thing. Just the desire for some people who somehow think they're above others to control and stay in power and take away from. And it's just like, what is there to be? People are different. Like, why is that so? It's not. I don't see that as a scary thing, but clearly others are behaving in a fearful way, I think.
They use it in a way to make it fearful. It's not a fearful thing. It's just they manipulate people to think that it should be something to be afraid of. And fear is the best thing to control people with.
It's upsetting me. Like, very upsetting that they had all their own shit and then someone just came and like, you're not going to have it anymore. We're taking this. Like,
yeah, and then hire somebody else to put on it. Like, what? That's ridiculous.
Yes, and you have to sell your horses to the price that the buyer tells you, among other things. So yeah, that just goes to show what kind of a fraught relationship the English and the Irish have had. So one of the stories that they told was about. Let me look at my notes. I want to get the names right. Here it is. The Battle of the Boyne, where William of Orange was invited by the Protestants to remove James II, the Catholic, from the throne. With me on this?
I'm a little bit. Remind me of the story.
Because James II was the king of, I think, England and Scotland and Ireland, I think at the time. And the Protestants didn't like that because he wasn't, I forget what the reason was, but it had something to do with religion. So the Protestants objected and they said, hey, William of Orange, the Dutch
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Oh no, Tom got stuck. Tom froze. Are we still here? Do you guys still hear us? I'm hoping it'll catch back up. Let me see. Notify Tom. Sorry about that. I'm hoping maybe he'll be able to pop back in so that he could finish. Oh,
There it
totally
goes.
lost him.
Un momento, por favor.
So,
Is there a saying for this? Like 2 shakes of the lamb's tail or some
I
crap?
don't
Just
know
wait a
what
minute.
that means. But I don't think there's a movie about this, but I
think there should be.
There should be.
There
Yeah,
absolutely should be.
I agree. I think that would be. I mean,
Wonder if I can. If we would influence that somehow.
I think it's worth noting that the author also read the audiobook, which doesn't happen like too often.
I've noticed when we read Irish or anybody of that has that kind of accent, when we read their stuff, it was usually the author that read it to us. I don't need this, right?
No.
What?
I don't
Goodbye,
know.
Mr. Chips have to do.
I don't know that. I don't think that has to do with anything.
Okay. Connection crapped out. All right, so give us a minute. Tom should be right back.
Hopefully we can click the link to get back in.
Excuse me. Sorry.
I would be interested in reading some of his other works, though I think he writes more like nonfiction stuff.
Right.
But I believe he lives in New York
Wait.
now.
No, scroll back up.
Scroll back up.
No, he passed away in 2017.
Oh, that's sad. He was born in Ireland. I think this was his first book. Yeah.
Oh, so after this, he went into. So Delaney wrote the screenplay for an adaptation of Goodbye, Mr. Chips. So he was actually involved in those that came up because of. Yeah. All right. All right.
Interesting. It's a novella about the life of a school teacher. And it has been adapted into 2 films. Okay. Hey.
Okay.
Welcome back.
This has
So
been
you
disconnecting
got cut off.
randomly. I know.
Oh no.
And
Well,
regardless of how many times I reboot the modem,
it
doesn't matter. So to get back to what I was saying, James II was the Catholic King of Ireland, England, and Scotland. Protestants didn't like what he was doing, so they asked William of Orange to come in. They fight, Battle of the Boyne. He retreats to France. He comes back in 1689 with an army, and he gets beaten again. So he retires after that. And then his son, let me see here. Let's see.
Isn't that Prince Charles's story too, or Stuart? Like,
yeah,
just
these are the Stuarts.
for a difference. Yeah. Okay.
No.
No.
No. I'm sad that this happens during his book.
I know.
Like, don't. Seems to have dropped again.
Do we need to get him back and rush it so that we don't have to deal with this, or
maybe,
just give our final thoughts? I don't know. I feel like there's a lot to talk about, and I want to read it again.
I'm surprised, honestly, that our connection's holding up.
He's writing it in the chat.
So James III tried to restore unsuccessfully his father to the throne in 1707. This is funny.
The fact that he wrote it. You should be writing it in this chat.
No, that's not linked to that. Like people.
Oh. They do it on YouTube.
Whatever. But okay, so James II's grandson also tried in 1745 at Culloden.
Right. Right, as I'm saying, like all of this is the same family origins. Like the.
I mean, I saw the like connections, which is why I was like, because we haven't been watching Outlander, and I was like, maybe we should go back.
Bonnie Prince Charlie.
Yes.
Yep. The Stewarts.
So this is not a book that I would have picked up on my own.
Tom's good at that.
Well, yeah, I think we're all good at that for each other.
Yeah.
But it's definitely one I would recommend to people. I think it was kind of like a pleasant surprise. I know it was a New York Times bestseller.
I think Ireland really captures the power of storytelling, because you learn history, even though it's not 100% accurate. You learn that history and stuff about it in the process of being enraptured into the story. Okay, we have Tom back.
So I did read what you
for now
put in the chat. Now. I don't know if you want to try to wrap things up while we have you, or
let's do it, because we can always put stuff on the Goodreads forum.
Yeah. So final thoughts?
5 stars for me.
Oh,
really?
Yeah. Again,
wow.
like you are really good at picking those books that have like not only a certain writing style and nuance. Like there's Frank Delaney. That's like what I was saying when you came back in, is that this book is like it keeps you in the story by telling you multiple stories, and you learn something in the process, and that is the true power of storytelling. Is actually like teaching somebody something and having them entertained at the same time, not like, oh, I got to do this research, and it's
well, it doesn't have to be
right.
And the fact that before we even got involved, I was like, well, I have to read this book again, because there will be more that I will be learning, not only about the book, but the story and history that I missed the first time around.
So I think I would give it a 4. I mean, I really enjoyed it. The only reason I wouldn't give it a 5 is because for me, 5 is like a book that I would tell everybody that I talk to read.
It's
that's just how I kind of think of it. Like, but I did really enjoy it. I am gonna still tell other people about it. It's not something I would have picked up for myself, but as he can attest, as we were listening, I was constantly gasping or laughing or being like, "Wait, what's going on?" I was.
Sorry to interrupt, Desirai. You do know that for most of the book, it is a YA novel, right?
Well, I guess with Ronan's coming of age story,
he's like from 8 to 21. Yeah, that's the range.
Can I throw something at your 5-star? Like the reason why because the rating is for you, not other people.
What does that have to do?
How much you enjoyed a book isn't going to mean someone else is going to enjoy it as much.
But that still has nothing to do with how I feel about it.
About sharing it with somebody?
What I was saying was that for me, a 5-star book is a book that I'm like, is a page turner for me. I can't wait to finish, and that I shout at everyone. Like I'm literally like, you need to read it. You need to read it. Like I told everyone that I came into contact with about One Day in December, because I was like, anytime somebody's like, I need a new book recommendation, I'm like, One Day in December. One Day in December. Yeah, so like,
all are on
like you get a
today's.
car, you get a car. Like that's how I feel when I read a 5-star book. And I think I would just be, and these are my feelings, not about what anybody else thinks about it, but I wouldn't throw out Ireland to everyone.
It was right. I wouldn't either, knowing because I know that some people aren't going to enjoy it as much as I did.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the book that much.
How did you guys experience it? Did you read it or ear read it?
I did both.
Okay.
I have to do audio, and she sped it up at some point and screwed me up. So that's the reason why I have holes.
That was why we took a little bit longer, because I could have sped it up because I had the text in front of me, and he wasn't able to.
I was like, I can't.
So.
I don't know. Not only is the words going faster than I can process them, they're also in a different
like,
accent. And I didn't know if he said penal or penile. So
if I didn't have the words in
I'm
front
suddenly strangely more interested. Oh no.
Or not even knowing the fact that the kid's name wasn't Roland.
Yeah, no. But I think this novel, if anything, was made for audiobook, because that's
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
100%. Absolutely.
So yeah, 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. I do think it's worth a reread. In the past, I haven't been much of a rereader, but I think just the way I feel about movies, there's definitely movies that I like to reread. I've kind of come into that books should be the same way. It took me a little while to get there though, but yeah, I would like to reread it at some point. And I don't know, maybe in the future I'll give it a 5-star.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do want to say though that I'm glad the ending was not as sad as I was anticipating, because I was like, this is not going to go well. Oh my God,
was that not a movie ending though? Holy
I know.
If they were making a movie, this would be the scene.
Dude,
we were just saying while you were like, you had popped out, and I was like, I don't think there's a movie about this, but it would make a really good movie. Like,
unfortunately, Mr. Delaney would not be able to do the screenplay.
No,
but it was really good. So did you want to share your final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I loved it. I've had it in my library for a while, among other of his works. And so I said, well, here's a fine excuse to actually read it. And I'm glad we did. That said, if Goodreads allowed half stars, I would give it a 4.5. But since it doesn't, I'm going to give it a 4. I was like, oh my God, should I? Shouldn't I?
Yeah.
But right now it's a 4, like you said, but it could easily be a 5.
Yeah.
On reread. So.
Okay, so I'm glad we all enjoyed Ireland by Frank Delaney. Next month we will be reading Wuthering Heights. Who apparently I don't know who the author is.
Emily Bronte?
Yeah, I was going to say Tom knows.
Wait, what?
He says he hopes he gets the right Bronte sister.
So I've not been much of a classics reader, but recently, because my son was, in high school, he was reading a few things and seemed to genuinely enjoy them. To help him out, we kind of read a few things together, and I was like, maybe it's not as bad as I remember, because classics to me were just, forced reading, things I had difficulty with, and so it's been hard getting my head around that. But since then, I've read Lord of the Flies, I read The Handmaid's Tale, I'm still working my way through The Count of Monte Cristo, Frankenstein. Yeah, so I made a commitment or a goal this year to read at least 4 classics, and my son did read Wuthering Heights, and he could not stop talking about it. He was like, "Oh, it was so juicy. It was so good. Mom, you have to read it."
And this is coming from someone who refuses to read.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Oh, there you go.
Read. Yeah.
Just got to find your jam. Yeah.
So yeah, but really funny. I had tried reading Wuthering Heights a long time ago because MTV did their own version of a movie based on Wuthering Heights, and I feel like it was in like the 2000s or something. And I watched it and I loved it. Oh. And I was like, yeah. And so, I was MTV, like, I got to read the original works. It was about like, they modernized it.
Right. Of course. That's what I'm saying. That's what they were It was for you at
But
that
it
point in
was
time.
so good. Like, I would like to rewatch that, but also I'd like to read the original.
Okay, let's read the book
text.
first,
Yes,
and then we can go
we'll
back and watch that.
that.
That's next month's
I
task.
started it today, and I
Oh,
think
did you?
it's funny to me how ridiculously rude they are to their tenant. It's like the first 2 chapters, but anyway, you'll see it. You'll read it when you get to that.
I saw something. Oh, no, actually, I was listening to, I believe, the Audible podcast,
Mhm.
and they mentioned Wuthering Heights, and somewhere in there they said that there is people who claim that Catherine and someone else, Catherine and Heathcliff, I think, might be vampires. That there's like people that have written about that because of how they were presented.
Interesting.
And so I think that's what got me really fascinated about it. I think there's a very interesting frame story in Wuthering Heights. Hopefully I don't struggle too much with how it's written, but I am excited to read it with both of you and to discuss it next month. So, all right. Well, thank you for joining us. Tom, I'm glad you were able to make it back in.
Yeah, right?
I'm surprised I was able to stay in, but yeah.
And so
Yeah,
hopefully you will join us
don't breathe.
next month reading Wuthering Heights. All right. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
So can I